So, Ralph, I think we're live. It sure does look like we're up on the stage there. And Bill Forster says, welcome. So that makes it good. All right. Welcome to CEO Zones, where we are the online community for CEOs and professional board of directors. We love it when you come visit us both on a live stream and or on a replay, which our YouTube channel is ceozones.com. Ralph Ward is with us again today. He is gracious enough to give us decades of experience once a month on this live stream. Today's episode is about the secrets to effective boardroom leadership. And for those of you that don't know, Ralph is globally respected as an author, a speaker, consultant. His expertise is corporate governance. He has multiple books. I'm not exactly sure how many, but more than 6. I know I added 6 up one time. His brand new book, 7 now, there we go. So I'm holding number 7 then. His brand new book, Hacking the Boardroom. We're going to get into the highlights of Chapter 13, Boardroom Leadership Lessons today. Ralph has been featured on C-SPAN, Bloomberg Money, NBC, sorry about that, featured in the Wall Street Journal, featured in the New York Times, USA Today. He is a global governance setter, trainer, and we're certainly glad to have you, Ralph. Welcome, Ralph.
Thank you. I like coming here and getting buttered up every few weeks.
Well, we appreciate you sharing.
I need that on a Wednesday afternoon. Great talking with you.
Thank you, Ralph. We really appreciate you donating your time all the time and really willing to share all the things that you have learned after, I'm going to say 4 decades. It might about 4 decades of boardroom governance. Because I recall one of your original hardback books.
Cool.
Yeah, and then I'll call this the mid. When I started to get in trouble, I went and bought this one and read it on an airplane one night. But your brand about 35 years of Boardroom Insider, your monthly newsletter, what you learned while you were training. Earlier today, I took a little search out into the AI world and saw where your masterclass, you still do that. Maybe tell us a little bit about the masterclass. Maybe some of the professional directors are interested in masterclass.
I've been training on this for over a decade now in the U.S. and overseas, giving training programs. And most popular have been 2-day and 4-day sessions, pretty much wrapping up everything on how to make boards more effective and going out and sharing information on this. We mentioned this earlier. I try to take a little bit of a different tack from most of the people in the governance field. Mine is more at the grassroots boardsmanship level, because having a board of directors is pretty much an impossible job now. It's become hugely professionally demanding for a group of well-meaning amateurs in the corporation. So just gathering up this information and sharing it in training, going through exercises, what would you do? What can we learn from this? And swapping ideas back and forth, because most of this stuff has never been really written down. People who are in board said, oh yeah, we solved this problem in the board meeting by doing X, Y, and Z. And brilliant idea never usually goes beyond the boardroom that they're in here. So I go around and steal good ideas and sort of just be an evangelist with them in my trainings, and get a lot of great responses from it. I enjoy it. Building this body of knowledge, like I say, no one else seems to be doing it. So I guess that's my role.
Excellent. Well, I know that we have Mary in Florida, who's on the Professional Directors Association. We've got our friend Terry from South Africa, who
Hi, Terry.
And so a new person to me, Eamon. Welcome, Eamon. Thank you for saying welcome, everyone. But please put your questions in the chat if you're watching this for the first time, which we are today on the live stream. And when you do the replay, if you want to email us, you could email me at bill.forster@ceozones with your questions. Or at the end of the show, we will share all of Ralph's content, so all of Ralph's contact, pardon me, so that you can reach out to Ralph directly if you'd like to. The easy way to find Ralph's contact information is go to ceozones.com, then the content partner page, and you will see all of our content partners. Ralph will be in the W's, and all of his LinkedIn, YouTube, website, and email are listed there. So I'm going to jump in the deep end here, Ralph, and see if I can stump you right out of your own book. Okay.
Hit me.
Hit you. So the first time I personally attended a board meeting, and I will say it was not a public company, but it was a family office. The first time I attended a board meeting, there were 12 outside directors. The CEO chairman was the shareholder. There was no other shareholder in the organization, but he owned about, and I ended up being their COO a little bit later that day, same day. But at the same time, there were a steel manufacturing company, a t-shirt manufacturing company. Some people might have heard of a thing called Haynes. Well, this is the guy that owned it. He owned a steel mill. He owned the largest printing company in the world at that time. They've since sold off those assets to other printers because they saw the end of paper, they thought, which turns out everybody was wrong about that. But we still use a lot of paper. But big printing company, an annual report printer, one of those high-end super sheet-fed press kind of printers. But the first time I'm in the boardroom, I'm thinking about A, I'm about to get a new job. B, the guy that owned all the shares was the chairman and the CEO, and his friends, I'll say, were local businessmen, not really, national businessmen who he had learned to like over the years. And there was zero friction. I'll just put it that way. And I learned that that was a big problem once I became COO of all these operating companies. Oh, and they owned 40 some TV and radio stations, to throw that in there. So quite a mix of different things. How often is it that the largest shareholder leads the board? And here's the question, well, question mark.
If it's a family firm, that's probably more the rule than it is the exception. And in a lot of the world, even if it's a supposedly public company, I'm thinking India particularly, you have the promoter who's in charge, they're the founder, and they pretty much call all the shots, especially in the board meeting here. And what you will find in these situations is the board isn't as contributory, isn't as useful as it's supposed to be. And I don't think it's because the leader, the CEO, the chair wants them to be mushrooms at it as much as the leader simply doesn't know how to run a board. What do you do with the board? How do you do it? I think I mentioned this in the past, but this is one of the things that boggles me. And I mentioned it in my new book in that chapter on board leadership. If you are chief executive, if you are any C-suite level position in a large company, especially a public company, anywhere in the world, a VP, something specialized like CFO, law office, chief legal counsel, so something getting up there in the corporation, you have a great vitae backing you up that got you into that position. You have way back in undergraduate and college, graduate classes, probably an MBA, some law training here, specialized training you've probably taken lots of, gotten degrees, you've gotten certification on various things having to do with finance, law, marketing, all of the things that have professional standards attached to them. And you have a great vitae of achievement because you don't just wander into that C-level position. You've worked your way up the ladder of achievement. You've got a multi-page vitae, did this, pushed this through, handled this, big P&L experience, managing people, all of this. If you get into that position, whether you succeed or not, you've gotten there because you've earned it. You've got the background and the training. Now, what about if you're leader of the board of directors? You've gotten all of that other stuff. Maybe you have the family name behind you. Maybe you founded the company. Maybe you're a former chief executive and you're retired. You come in from the outside. Maybe you're a friend of a friend. You mentioned the family company there. If they had an independent director, it would probably be someone who was a crony of the founder as chair, lead independent director. Maybe you know someone, maybe in a lot of the world where we have major government related corporations, you've been appointed by some ministry and just sort of parachuted into the boardroom to be the chair. Whatever it is, however you got into that specific role at the head of a board table, it's almost certain that knowledge and experience on managing and running a board of directors wasn't the cause, wasn't the driver. You can know absolutely nothing about it other than what you've seen other people do. And that's the qualifier that got you there. Yet, if you look at a corporation, legally, that is the very tip of the spear for power in a corporation. Being the chair of the board of directors, that management answers to, just as you go down the corporate chain. And you're just someone who wandered in and is holding down the desk and you don't have any idea how to do this particular job. And it boggles me that there's no qualification. There's virtually no training on it. I keep track of board schools, MBA program trainings on governance. I'm a little bit of a skeptic on it because so much of it seems to be more theory than actual practice. But at least they're giving some training on how to be an effective member of a board of directors. Training on how to lead a board of directors, there's virtually none anywhere in the world. No one trains you. You have to pick it up from what you see. It's sort of like parenting. And if you have a bad parent, you're going to be a bad parent or are more likely to. You've served on boards. You served on boards where you've had people who are the chairs, and they obviously didn't know what they were doing. They let things drift. They had their own agendas, all these other things. Well, guess what? Everyone else in the boardroom picks that up and imprints it. Oh, that's how you lead a board of directors. They may think it's a bad example. They may think it's a good example, but that's the only example they have to model themselves on. So it's a mess, and it is incredibly dangerous. And as I said, it still boggles me that we're willing to accept that.
Okay. So let's assume we have a CEO, chairman in the audience, and they don't have a question because they make the assumption, well, all my metrics, all my results meet my needs. I'm in total control. How would you help them adjust to how do you assess what might be a better avenue or what might get them even better outcomes from a board's participation, from board insight? Can you help us go down that path a little bit?
Yeah, especially public companies now. In some countries, it's mandated. Most companies, it's mandated. But if you have a combined CEO chair, and that's one of the things we accept in the US that a lot of the world finds weird, by the way,
Right.
that there is a lead independent director, someone who convenes meetings of the independent members of the board, usually after the full board meeting, for a private, okay, how is it looking? What do you think? What's the results here? And that's someone very important if you combine the roles to have that someone as your board whisperer, someone who can give you insights, and it goes the other way on pitching ideas to the board. Because in most of these cases, if you are the CEO and chair of that board, without that intermediary, any sense you have of what the board thinks, what they feel, what their priorities are, is going to be filtered and processed through that. You're never going to know exactly what everyone is thinking, because it's essentially impossible to say no to you in that position. You need someone, if they can't say no, to at least say, wait a minute, to whisper in your ear, give you a memento mori, to go to for a sense of the board. Do they like this idea? Do they support that? And to go back the other way to the CEO, we're uncomfortable about this. Maybe they're not going to tell a combined CEO chair that, but if you have a lead independent director, they can serve as that intermediary, and all sides should be trusting them on that.
Okay. So one, that chairman has to have somewhat of a trust relationship with someone to say, hey, here's a blind spot, if you will. How do you handle that? Because if you're an employee, you're a direct report, or possibly a friendly director, what's your experience on, do you bring in even another outsider to kind of say, hey, let's see if we can optimize or lift the board's result, lift the board's impact to the longer term? What's some of your suggestions there for methods to get the blind spots out on the table without getting fired, without getting removed from the board, right?
And there is the point right there. I think you put your finger on it. If you are in a position where you can get ousted from the board or voted off the board for being a voice that says something the CEO chair doesn't want to hear, you don't really have a board to begin with. Essentially, you just have a group of advisors, a kitchen cabinet, and it isn't going to be able to have any sort of a real reality check then. But and I see this with family firms being a good way of handling it. And younger venture startups, they tend to put off getting completely outside independent members on the board too long. It's sort of 47th on the top 10 list of things that they're worried about. And I encourage them to do it early and to get someone everyone has to respect. Growth companies, family companies, I tell them, get an independent director from a company who has accomplishments that are the next level of where you want to be. They can help you grow into that level because they've been there and done that. And by having that background, everyone has to respect them. Might not agree with them, but this is someone, yeah, he's got the bones. He knows what he's doing. So everyone has to at least listen to him. Family businesses, it's even more important because even professional, well-managed family businesses and their boards still tend to have a little bit of the family issues going on there. Bring a stranger who's outside the family in the boardroom, especially someone who's respected, and it's like bringing a stranger to your family dinner. Everyone is a little bit more formal. You're not going to get mad at this cousin or say mom liked you better or squabble here. You try to do things properly so the outsiders don't see what family issues are. And that can be a good thing because you don't want the family issues in the boardroom. You want business issues in the boardroom. Bringing an outsider who everyone respects, that'll bring that. That'll deliver it.
All right. So I like that idea, and that is what I ended up doing in my scenario in the late when would that have been? The late 80s, I guess mid to late 80s, where the chairman wasn't ready to hand off to the next generation, so he hired me in, and I had the fun job of what Grandpa started was the first thing we had to get rid of, right? So, but fortunately, the now chairman, who was the grandson of that. It's about 5 generation old company at that point to get as big as
Mm.
they were. Uh, he understood that they needed to get rid of it, and he reluctantly closed down. And it's the old original. Well, this is what started everything. How could we get rid of it? Right. The very first business was a great cash cow, and then 50, 60 years later it was a dog, right? Well, uh, you got to get rid of it. So anyway, that was part of that situation, and that helped me get other people on the board.
And you bring in an outside reality check on it here,
Right.
and
Well,
someone
that
who
was
can
kind of I was kind of the tip
state
of,
the obvious.
yeah. So in that scenario, I was the tip. I can think of one of my favorite large multi tens of billions of dollar family organization.
Mhm.
And fortunately, there, the chairman was smart enough to say, I don't know, but we are big enough that we need to be uh, as smart as our largest suppliers, as smart as our largest customers, those types of things. And therefore, he really drove the change. And there were several times where he would reluctantly say, I have to do this, but I don't like it. And but that helped the rest of the board kind of be trained on, it's okay now. You can tell me my baby's ugly, and let's handle it, and let's get it dressed up, where it took maybe the first 15 years you couldn't dare do that, or you'd be on the
And
outside.
that's a tough job to walk into here. But one thing I would mention here about board leadership, as I said, it's fascinating because, as I said, no one really trains you to do that, and it is a very distinct job. And worse, if you are a proven business leader, because probably of Fortune 1000 boards, public company boards in the US, probably 80% of them have a board chair who is a current or former chief executive. They have learned how to do that job really well, but when they come in as an independent leader of a board of someone else's company, the fascinating part is a whole lot of the lessons they learned aren't any good anymore. All of the things you learn to run a company as a top level business leader can sometimes be the opposite of what you need to be an independent leader on the board. You don't have formal powers. You're the chair of the board, but you have no business ordering people to do things in the company. That's why you hire a CEO and management team. You usually, if you're an independent chair, you don't have an office or staff dedicated to what you do. You have to beg, borrow, and steal from the corporate secretary's office or a general counsel's office or whoever supports the board. And you're working with a group of people who are usually just as type A leaders as yourself. So you're the lead sled dog trying to guide a whole bunch of other lead sled dogs in the
Yep.
boardroom. And all you have is emotional persuasion. The best independent board chairs are very emotionally intelligent. They learn how to do things through persuasion, through active listening, through being able to do sometimes verbal jujitsu with things and working behind the scenes. And these are all good life skills. But if you come in as a chief executive thinking what I learned to get to my current job position is going to be what I need to run a board of directors independently, it's going to fail.
Okay. Let's shift, and for those following live and at home, you've got chapter 13 of Ralph's new book, Hacking the Boardroom, in front of you. You're looking at 7 habits for board chairs. How did you boil it down to 7? How did what was the context of this? Because my mind goes crazy. I can think of just now, my board of directors here at CEO Zones are all executives that either were a client of mine at one point, a customer of mine at one point, or we were on together a nonprofit board and I really liked them. So that I handpicked my own, right? So as a
Mhm.
founder, I handpicked my own. And I can sit here today and think, if I'd explained that exact same scenario to my friend Bob and we were at a client site, Bob would have responded with thunder. At
Mhm.
CEO Zones, Bob says, Bill, you might want to talk that over with so and so. And I need to learn that that means, hey, idiot, I'm trying to help you here, but I also enjoy our friendship, right? So,
Right.
so back to those 7 good habits. How did you get that 7 good exercises? Pardon me. How do we get there, and what are they?
You put me in a spot because now I got to try to remember how I phrased them all here without
Okay.
looking at my book.
Well,
That's an
I
embarrassing
can
thing,
help you. I don't
especially when
care.
you've read through the whole,
It's an
when you wrote
open
the
book
whole thing
test.
and then have read through it
Yeah.
yourself also to
Yeah.
try to get it.
It's
But
an open book test. That's okay.
the first thing I've found effective chairs do is they practice for the role and not just running through the agenda in the board meeting, but actually sit down and practice. What do I have to do differently here in a board meeting to run a board meeting? How do I do that? How do I learn to not take charge and tell people what to do and say, this is what we have to do, this is how we have to handle it? You don't get to do that when you're the independent board leader. One of the rules I have seen is that the more a board chair speaks in the meeting, the less effective they are. They're there to facilitate everyone else speaking. Ideally, the board leader is one where you have a vote on a proposal and you never really knew what the board chair thought of it. Were they in support of it or were they against it? Maybe it's because they played their neutrality well, maybe because they were so subtle, you never read what was going on in the sleight of hand of leading the discussion there. But that's something that takes practice, and it takes conscious practice to do, to step away from business leadership into board leadership. And as I said, another part of that is developing discussion from everyone else. Here's a great topic: strategic silence.
Strategic silence.
Someone's got to jump in. You got to say something here. Good board chair learns how to do that at the right moment and just shut up and not say anything and let someone else fill in. Or they're very good at rephrasing what someone said. You've had this in a meeting. Someone came up with a good kernel of an idea or a thought. Maybe it wasn't clearly expressed. Maybe it wasn't well expressed. The ability to not jump and cut that person off, but to subtly, honestly say, I'm hearing you say X, Y, and Z. Is that a way you would consider it here? Rephrase it in a way that makes it clear to everyone without insulting the proposer on it. And again, that takes a lot of emotional intelligence on their part. Another thing is a good chair is accessible outside of the meeting. It's like everything else with the board of directors. What happens within the boardroom is a fraction of the time and effort a good board member should be putting in on the role. And that's probably double for a board chair. People can call you between meetings and ask a question. You're reaching out and communicating to the chief executive or some of the other leadership on staff. Give me the lowdown on this number and the information. This was something we had to leave off for more background at the last board meeting. Do we have that yet? How are you feeling about that? The things that you become comfortable doing well when you're in that position. You're educating yourself. You're learning more about the people in the boardroom that you're leading in their position. As I said, you've got a table full of people who are top leaders in their profession. They know a lot. Some of them may think they know everything. How do you play off their strengths and weaknesses, draw out from what they know, help them learn better to do what they're doing. Again, emotional intelligence, learning what they have to do, how they get to say it, learning the chief executive's strengths and weaknesses. You're not there so much to be a check on the CEO. You're there to be on the CEO's team. And like a good coach, someday you may have to pull that player off the team. But before you get there, you've done everything to coach and help them to be more effective. What are the chief's strengths? What are the chief's weaknesses? And that applies for the other people in the C-suite here. You may have someone in management, law, CFO. They really know how to do deal making well. Maybe there's some other aspect that they're not so strong on. Who else is? What are those strengths, and how do you draw on them to get the information the board needs? The board meeting agenda, it's just a script to start with. You're not trying to run through it. I have found this is something interesting that you will see in a boardroom, and it's why I always try to get perspective from the people on a board. How did the meeting go, do you think? You may have a case where the CEO says, this meeting went really well with the board. We got through the agenda quickly. I got the approvals I needed. Everyone got back to work. But the chair might think, I think we rushed through this a little bit. We didn't really get as much discussion as we wanted in on that. And that's where the chair needs to step up a little bit. The CEO might well have a good reason for viewing the board meeting as a way to get through the agenda, get the approvals, get back to work. Chair isn't so convinced on that, and they're willing to drag something out. They're willing to put more time in on something that they feel is necessary to do a better job. I'm trying to think if I got any other points here that I didn't cover here, but also good chairs are their own toughest critics. They give themselves a real talking to after the board meeting. Did I shut up when I should have? Did we cover this well? And finally, a good chair knows what they don't do well and what they don't have strengths in. Sometimes, as I said, you can overcome all of the CEO leadership, do this, do that things when you take over the chair's role and be more emotionally intelligent. Maybe you have trouble doing that. Maybe you want to talk over people. Maybe you try to make decisions. You have a wingman if you're good in the boardroom, some other independent director. In some cases, it might be the CEO who can whisper in your ear or give you a gentle nudge. Okay, you made the point. Okay, you're talking over this person, and you'll respect that and listen to them. You don't have to be perfect to chair a board, but you know how to draw out the strengths of the other people in the boardroom to make you better at leading it.
Not in this chapter, but I was on a different board recently where we literally went out and hired a lead board member. Didn't call him chair, but they acted as a chair, right? Because at that point in time, the board members were shareholders, and one outside independent who had a very specific agenda of strategically making sure that we were nice and ready for a sale. So the internal due diligence to get ready for the external due diligence. But that one outside director, so two of them, one was the lead, one was all about the strategic sale of this particular company. As a lead, is there a difference? In that particular case, I noticed that the CEO literally gave the lead more latitude than he probably would have if somebody were named chairman. And that just was something I noticed over 4 or 5 months of meetings, monthly meetings, where I'm paying them as an outside lead. I expect them to do the outside lead, and it almost improved the organization just from that simple move. Is that something where chairmen donate or delegate to a leader? I guess I'd say often, because I hadn't seen that before personally.
I haven't seen it either, but it looks like sounds like a best practice way of doing things. And I think you've hit onto something there. Usually the chair is there by default, by misadventure. It's no one that the chief executive wanted to be the chair or selected the chair, because it doesn't work that way. It goes the other way around. In this case, it was purposeful. And that gave the founder CEO chair buy-in on the process. They said, as you said, I'm giving this person money, I'm paying them to do this, so I better shut up and let him do what I'm paying him for. It sounds like it was well handled, and it sounds like you did a good job of leading them to that position in the boardroom.
I won't take any credit, but it seemed to me to be the best way to get around
Go ahead and take the credit. I'll let you.
the egos in the room. That was a way to,
Mhm.
hey, shouldn't we do this? Oh yeah, if we all collectively did that, then we weren't giving away power. We were we were adding a partner, if you will, or adding a trusted advisor to the table. So anyway,
And that's
that hit me. Um, Another question coming out of chapter 13, back to your book, the brand new book. Please go buy it. Where would they be able to buy that? Amazon?
I'm on Amazon, and if you go to hackingtheboardroom.com, it leads you to the publisher's site. So
Okay.
either one of those are good. Probably whatever venue you're buying books available, check on Hacking the Boardroom, and it will be there. I should mention there, I have completed the audiobook version of it, and I'm
Oh,
working on getting it on Audible right now. So that
excellent.
should be going shortly if we get all the technical things that they want sorted out. And anyone who's done an audiobook knows they're very fussy about background noise levels and all the other little stuff that's over my head.
uh, so in chapter 13, you get into the story of the CEO is retiring, but remained the chair. And how do you make that work? Because all of a sudden, the person that the chair approved to take over,
Mhm.
I'm there to kind of watch them to make sure they do a good job. So how do you work your way through that as a board, as a director, as a chairman, as the CEO? Maybe you should retire and get the heck out. I don't know, but help us with that one. Yeah.
It's very difficult because if you were the CEO and chair and running everything, and if you cede that position, as you said, in the board meeting, you're pretty much sucking all the oxygen out of the room for the new leader here.
Mhm.
And you can be very good and you can be very conscientious about saying, I will step back. But the temptation is always going to be there, and not just on your part, but the other members of the board. They're used to you being the leader there. And even if you have a new leader designated, consciously or unconsciously, they're going to be watching you out of the corner of your eye and listening to you to see where you stand on it here.
Mhm.
This is something I have found is fascinating. If you have a board breakfast the morning of or dinner the night before a board meeting, and you come in and have no idea, you know, this is the members of the board, but you don't know who's who. Watch and see who everyone tends to respect and listen to and want to hear from first on something that comes up in conversation. Then you found the person who is the actual leader of the board, and they might not have the chair title, but that's the one that everyone is listening to. And I'm afraid if you are a former chair, you are going to still have that gravity in the boardroom, and it's going to weaken things. It's good to have that board whisperer, someone else who you respect on the board as a peer who's been there, who is able to gently nudge and say, you know, maybe it is time to go attend to yachting in the Caribbean or planting your garden or something here. But let things take over, because even if you're just stepping back and being a member of the board in that situation, it's going to be unbalanced. It's very hard to do short of, say, a 6 month, maybe 1 year period. It's very hard to do it and make it work.
Okay. Uh, So I know we're scheduled for another boardroom insider November 19th or 20th. I forget. We'll make sure everybody gets that. I forget exactly when it is, sometime before Thanksgiving, right there. But and and you're thinking of all this experience. I'm trying to figure out a way to boil it down, because even hacking the boardroom, your earlier books were 10 times thicker, but this one really says, hey, I have thought about this. I've worked with
Mhm.
hundreds, I don't know, thousands of boardrooms. I have my own masterclass on training boards, and you really boiled it down. So now I'm trying to even get a little bit more thicker in the sauce, if you will. Since I'm in Lancaster County, we our Mennonite neighbors, if it's thick and made with potatoes, it's good. It doesn't matter what you put in it after that. But so to make it even thicker and heavier, I guess that's the term. Yeah. Um, what are some of the obstacles that you have to get around when the board is all brand new? And I was in a situation where there was a divestiture. The new if you will, the portfolio leader, uh, everybody's brand new. Any suggestions you have around that kind of a hack? I know you kind of went into communication 101. You have emotional intelligence. You watch for who's the leader, who has experiences, their strengths and weaknesses. But anything else you could share? Because I happen to have looked over at who's watching, right? And some of those, and even on the replay, we get smaller solopreneurs that are just setting up their first board, uh, that watch the replays. I know in our community they're a billion and larger in annual revenue, so we won't say that. But for the sake of YouTube viewers, uh, you've got all brand new. You're the CEO. You're 85% shareholder, let's say. What would you
Mhm.
what would you suggest to somebody like that?
In those situations, describing it as being an issue or a problem, I think is wrong. That's an opportunity because you finally got a clean sheet of paper for doing everything in the board right. It just takes some consciousness of the owners of the enterprise, maybe founder, maybe the people who are in there at the beginning, to give some thought to this, because most boards, the way they're structured, their agendas, their committees, everything is just sort of built over decades of accretion here and inertia. That's the way we always did things. No one thinks about it too much. Oh, we just spun off this new division. We can start and do a clean sheet of paper. And that's great. You can sit down and do research because it's all out there on the internet. Board charters, descriptions of how boards work, job descriptions for each member of the board, job descriptions for each of the committees that you'll want to start out with, probably an audit committee, maybe a governance committee to start with, keep it simple. But you can get all of this written down and thought out without all of the old baggage that you had. It's a wonderful opportunity, but someone has to be the person who says, let's do this right from the beginning here. And you mentioned startups here, young companies. Most of them I have found venture companies founded, started up. Corporate governance is about 93rd on their top 10 things, list of things that they worry about. And I encourage them, no, stop even for 5 minutes to put a little bit of time right now into putting together a board charter, bylaws for your board, a job description, a good calendar, and then at each meeting taking proper minutes of it. It will pay you down the road incredibly for the young company. When you get to the next round of funding, if you're trying to look at an equity event or an exit or sale of the company, think of how much more attractive you'll be if you have all of your board records and paperwork and minutes tied up in a neat bow. It tells them these people thought about that. They professionalized it. They don't have stock floating around out there that we don't know where it is. All of these other things they've given thought to. So someone has to slap themselves and say, okay, I will put time into this at the beginning and make it a discipline. Because once you start down that road, it's self-perpetuating. You'll keep doing it that way, and it keeps paying dividends.
That's made me think of something totally off of effective leadership in the boardroom. But what's your experience around a chief administrative officer who prepares the communications for Wall Street, prepares the communications to the shareholders? Is there a certain size or complexity where it's a good idea to actually have a full-time, and I'll even call it department? I can think of one of my past clients that there was a chief administrative officer, but he had a team and they were all full-time.
Yeah, like IR, investor relations, are we talking?
Yes.
Or,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's probably beyond my pay grade, how you do
Okay.
that and at what point you structure that. It would depend on a lot of factors that I don't really work with on that.
Okay. All right. The
It's
one company.
taken me years to say I don't know when I don't know. So.
Well, that's a good thing. For those young people out there, that's something you need to learn really quickly, or you'll get yourself in a deep ditch. So well done, Ralph. Uh, okay, we have a couple more minutes. Is there anything else you wanted to share that we didn't bump into?
Uh,
Um,
I hate mentioning my book again and again, but this one
I
is
know.
truly a bit different from the ones I have done. And
Okay.
I actually, you never hear an author say this, but I actually wish the cover price was a bit less because I would encourage people to get it and wear it out. Sit down, scribble notes on it, make additions, use it as a workbook because that's what it essentially is. Take this in, use it in the boardroom, say, add this item to it, scribble it down, tuck notes in, dog ear it. If there's something in there you said, this doesn't work for me, scratch it out. That's fine, go ahead. But it's really a workbook, a how-to guide for running the board and keeping it out of trouble. Wear it out, use it out, and then go out and buy another copy. That's even better, but put it to work.
Well, I did see that the price came down a little bit from pre well, more than a little bit. It came down a lot, even though it might be more than you thought it would be. I think this one was around 2018 because that's when I started to
Mm-hmm. Yep.
uh, think about how do we divest and what do we do and things like that before my retirement. And this book, um, I did do that. This is my, I'll show it to you copy, but over there on my
Good.
bookshelf is my dog-eared written on, and then I even had OneNotes, Microsoft OneNotes, of what your book made me think, specific to what I was going through in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Was probably 2019 actually that I was
And
active.
I encourage people who have my books to feed back to me on that. Oh, you forgot this item. We tried that and it worked. We tried your item here and it didn't work. You don't know what you're talking about. Tell me. You know, I mean, that's what it's here for. And as I said, a lot of this is information that people discover and it doesn't go beyond their boardroom. There will be items in my book that you will read and say, everybody knows that. Why is he trying to sell that to me? But then there'll be something you discover that you didn't know. Say, oh, that's brilliant. Because someone else on another board will read the same two items and reverse them. That'll be one that they never heard of, but this other one, yeah, oh, okay, that's a good idea. So boards of directors are still very much a cottage industry at most organizations, and they're crying out for this information on how do you manage a board.
Right. Okay. Um, I think we did a pretty good job of the topic that we were supposed to be focused on: secrets of effective boardroom leadership. I think I don't know, we might cause a part two, but I think we did a pretty good job of trying to lay out for the audience some of the things that, let's say, a high level of what they're going to find in a deeper way in your book, or through going to your YouTube channel, Boardroom Insider. Actually, your YouTube channel is YouTube/ at Ralph Ward 1982. But on your YouTube channel, I know I've watched several of those episodes, and the first time I kind of made 2 notes, and then I watch it the third time maybe a week later, and it's brand new to me because I'm now in a different mindset, and I'm thinking about how do I help this client, or how do I help this member of our community, and not hurt them, but actually help them. So, and then every once in a while, you're going to get the weird email that says, I don't know what I'm talking about. Can you help this guy? But that's what the community's about. So,
Yeah.
All right. So I'm just going
Don't
to.
have any questions in the audience here, Terry? I know if you're listening in, you always have good comments, but if you want to chip in, I always love what you have to say. And thanks for sending me some of your writings, Terry. It's been really helpful.
Terry has actually started to share his writings with us, and you'll be seeing them in the community as well.
Good.
I don't see Terry or Mary asking or saying anything. So I think we're okay there, Ralph. And let's see. So, and I don't see anyone asking any questions. I think we covered the base of what we met the expectation. We'll let the audience decide if we exceeded the expectation. But as the host of CEO Zone's Boardroom Insider with Ralph Ward, I'll say we met the expectation. We won't get crazy. We'll just say that we did do that, and I appreciate you very much, Ralph. This, for those of you that would catch this on a replay, you can get that at ceozones.com and go into our YouTube channel from the website, or go right to YouTube to CEO Zones. And we have many series up there. Boardroom Insider, I believe we have 4 or 5 episodes up there. We'll have this one and another one. Actually, we'll have a December one as well. So a couple more this year on our YouTube channel. We do post relinks inside LinkedIn. If you scroll down through CEO Zone's company profile page, you'll see other videos and links to be able to see those. So, and Ralph, you have a meet the speaker because you're very engaging, and you're welcomed. You're welcoming the opportunity to be a keynote speaker. Rick Williams. Okay, Rick Williams. We got a question here for us, Ralph. I'm going to show it on the. And Rick, by the way, I talked to this morning, Ralph. Rick lives in the greater Boston area. He's a big sailboat racer. He's on many tech boards, and and he also is the author. And I don't have it in front of me, Rick.
Oh.
I believe it's called Creating Your Future the Right Way.
I know Rick. We're connected on LinkedIn.
You know Rick. Okay. So his question, what's your opinion of NACD? And be careful here.
Okay. Yeah. I have valued what NACD does. It's sort of the 500-pound gorilla in the U.S. on governance, particularly if you are trying to get on your first board of directors, looking up who your regional NACD branch is, getting involved, becoming a member, going to some of the programs, getting certifications, I think is a benefit as part of your board search process here. It's great information to put on a board vitae. It makes people realize, yeah, you're board-minded. I'm a bit equivocal on the value of it. I don't know. I think I used this metaphor before. The board training that you can get through a lot of sources is kind of like, the Scarecrow and the Wizard of Oz getting a piece of paper from the wizard telling him he's officially smart now. Well, he was smart to begin with, but now he's got a piece of paper saying so. And I think it's that way with a lot of people going, not just to beat up on NACD, but director colleges overall. But it certainly doesn't hurt anyone who's trying to gain a board seat to have these certifications, to have these initials on your board vitae. And you learn some serious background of it too. And I think it makes you more of a serious director when you get on a board to know what the context is. Here's something to consider. No one likes board meetings. Anyone involved with them does not like the board meeting. It's a pain if you're on staff. Oh, I got to get all of this paper together. Company secretary has to chase down all this information. CEO says, yeah, I got a board meeting coming up. I got to get all this ready and I got to try to get approvals from them. Board chair typically thinks, yeah, I got to do all this and go through all of this. And the members of the board are, yeah, whatever, picking at their phone in the board meeting. No one likes it. No one enjoys it. If you take some of these classes, it gives you enough background to think, okay, maybe I can make a difference here. Maybe this is a valuable use of my time. And if enough people think that and approach being on a board that way, everyone benefits. It becomes more valuable.
So I have a new question, Ralph, that I didn't have till Rick asked that one.
Okay.
But I applied one time for a CEO position, and it said that the CEO must be NACD certified to even apply to be the CEO. I took the interview, asked the crazy question of why would that matter? And apparently all of the board were association members, association trained, and they felt that was a skill set that was necessary for that job. I did not take that job, or I guess I didn't even get the offer because they stuck to that. I tried to pick the Band-Aid and say, are you nuts? But anyway, because it was something I wanted to do. But I did not get that job. So any bump into that very often?
I have never heard of that happening before here.
It was a company in Chicago, by the way. Yeah, it was a yeah.
What I would say though is that would be a board that really takes their work seriously if that was the institutional view of it here. How much value, I'm not sure, but that they take the job seriously, that's probably 3/4 of being a good director right there. So bully for them.
Yeah, and it wasn't hidden in the qualifications needed. It was big and bold. So, but it was a company in Chicago area, the greater Chicago area. Okay, and Rick is offering. He has an article. Check out Rick article. I assume that would be Rick Williams on LinkedIn. Your board, a pain in the ass or a valuable asset.
I gotta read this. Please send. I gotta see what this is.
All right. So I think that brings us to the top of the hour. I'm going to hide that. Rick, thank you so much for bringing some fun with you today. Ralph, we really appreciate you continuing to share. I think you've written the book, you've done the training, you've been all over the world, and you continue to share with our audience. Continue to share with our members, and I really, really appreciate your support. So thank you, Ralph.
And I like what you're doing here, and I like CEO zones. And I would just say, please share back to me if you got something that really works in your board or in your action as a board member. Let me know, because I love whacking myself on the head and saying, why haven't I thought of that idea before? Those are great. So that's why it's a community.
That's right. That's right. And that's why we are a community, so we can learn from each other. So thank you, Ralph. And I will see you in about a month when we do the next live stream. So thank you all.
See you then.
All right.